Federation presents a double main event. World Wrestling Federation Champion, the Hitman Bret Hart, collides with his own brother inside the steel cage. And Ted DiBiase's Undertaker goes one-on-one with Paul Bears with Leslie Nielsen on the case. It's Summerslam. Damn, it's good to be back. How are you, my friend? Thank you for kicking so much ass and holding it down in my hiatus this month. What a fantastic job you have done. But I will stop. Kissing your ass and all that high praise. I will get down to business. Where can everyone catch you? All that good stuff.
You can catch me on Twitter at The Perfect Tenant. Log on to unionsmack.bigcartel.com where you can purchase an official shirt from all of your shows, Travis. And I think a Muted and Major League Wrestling podcast t-shirt is on its way. I know Bubba definitely wanted one. And you can go to completelynovel.com where you can purchase my book, The Undertaker, A Trip Down Death Valley. And at last, I say at last, it's not that close to being done, but it's closer than it was. My NXT UK book is, I'm going to say, about 2-ish months away without jinxing it. And it's fucking good to have you back. No longer do I have to talk to myself. No longer do I have to sit and write long intros down. It's just nice to have you back and do what we do.
I tried my ass off to think of a way to live up to the amazing intros you've done. But I feel a lot better because all fair you told me you cheated and you wrote them all down. I just wing it. So I feel better. I didn't have to live up to anything.
Yeah, give the tricks of the trade away, why don't you? Come on.
Kayfabe, brother. And as always, on Twitter, at the Hibiki TMD. Hit that red button right down below. Thank you, guys. By the way, Matt, 1,000 goddamn subscribers. We did it.
I'm the Bruiserweight Pete Dunne, and you're listening to the Union Smack podcast.
Yeah,
man, look for more content right here. This Major League Podcast and The Alternative. All kinds of goodness, man. Just dropping those bombs back and better than ever. Muted with Bubba also. Too many shows to name. Really sad week for professional wrestling last week. But that's why we're here. That's why we're back. That's why the Smack is back, to pick you up and talk about good old times that you can't help but have a smile on your face, like Jeff Jarrett and Mabel and Leslie fucking Nielsen and maybe the cheesiest Vince McMahon I've ever seen at certain parts on this. This was so 94, Matt. My God.
Yeah. That should have been the tagline, shouldn't it? SummerSlam, it's so 94.
This is when they actually started that on taglines. What was this one? Feel the Heat?
I think so, yeah. And then the next year would be the Heat is on.
Well, this one was on from the United Center in Chicago, Illinois, a brand new United Center in 94. Pretty beautiful arena, actually. The lighting for its time, especially. It was a good look aesthetically on TV.
Yeah, it was. And this was the first event, did they not say 1,000 times throughout the 3 hours? The first event from the United Center. I liked it. And do you know what? But before we get into this, without giving any spoilers, it wasn't just the surroundings that did this justice. The crowd were absolutely hot for everything.
Good old-fashioned Chicago crowd. Good old-fashioned Chicago
Yeah.
crowd. And good to show you, it's not just, we know, the Rosemont Horizon, whatever it's called now, that's the one where WWE, that's their stomping grounds in Chicago. They sporadically would go to the United Center, but I think just the wrestling fans in general in Chicago on another level. Probably, and I know Steve Austin said it in interviews, Matt, but for me too, as a viewer, it's probably my favorite town to see wrestling go into because those fans are always hyped for anything usually.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. They were very passionate fans. And you know what? They were passionate for things such as Mabel and Jeff Jarrett. So God bless them.
At least for the entrances. You know what I miss?
We'll get into it. Go on.
We'll get there. You know what I miss is this SummerSlam set with the little screen and the big orange goddamn fucking just divider wall, whatever, and the spray painted look. God, it's so 90s and I miss it. And I wish they would do like retro SummerSlam one year, just something different. Just bring, because you know it's in that goddamn warehouse they have.
Oh yeah, somewhere. Well, isn't that the same thing they used to like WrestleMania 11? They peeled off the SummerSlam stuff and just repainted it and restickered it.
Yeah, and then they like converted one into like that iconic purple entrance that they used for like Mania 13, and they use it for so many. But this one, the big orange one, I think they would use for Survivor Series that year too, and possibly the next year's SummerSlam. So this one got a little play too. Now your version, we talked off air for some goddamn reason, started with a baseball vignette with Gorilla Monsoon, and mine started off with, it was baseball, but it was completely different. It was a sad little kid on the field during the time 1994 the MLB went on strike. Randy Savage came up to the sad little kid because there was no TV to watch on TV and said, "Hey man, I'll play with you, little guy." And it said like just this cheesy hokey shit about the new generation and how they don't quit on their fans. Basically, that was the intro I got. Yours sounds as boring as mine kind of was. Yours sounds about 10 times more boring, though, from what you're saying.
Oh, it was hideous. This must have been 6 minutes, if not 7. Could have been longer, Travis. It seemed like a week. But we had Savage, Diesel, Razor, Shawn. I think Mr. Perfect might have been there. Maybe not. I can't remember. But they were all playing WWF versus, I think it was Media All-Stars, and Gorilla Monsoon narrated it, and they went through every pitch and every like stage of the game, and well done. They had well done there, and it was so boring. It's like, I don't like baseball. I've never really got into it, and this formed like the first 5 to 7 minutes of the DVD version of SummerSlam, and I don't remember that like when it went out live originally in '94, and I feel like it would have been something that stuck with me.
Talk about things that don't stick with you. I feel like some of the most classic pay-per-views of all time always had a banger of an opening match. This one wasn't a bad tag match, but just there's a head scratcher why this was booked to open the show, especially considering that the head shrinkers who wrestled Bam Bam Bigelow and IRS in this match were not only baby faces, which kind of never really truly worked, like fans were kind of behind them, but also they lost the titles right before this on a house show to Shawn Michaels and Diesel, which at the time was more commonplace because WWF relied on the house show business more than the TV. But this is right at the tail end of that. This was really the last time I can remember like that where a title changed hands on a house show. No, I think it was Bob Backlund and Diesel a couple months after this, but after that they kind of stopped doing that. And they relied on their TV to carry the business more than what it is today. Obviously, it was the right call financially.
Oh yeah, and you know what? There was no internet back then, so the first time you'd have really known that the head shrinkers lost the titles were either if you watched the pre-show with Todd Pettengill, because he must have mentioned it 20 times in the first 5 minutes. You're so lucky you missed that, Travis. So lucky. But obviously, it's like if you didn't see that, then the first time you'd have really known when the head shrinkers came out with no titles, and you were just you sat there expecting a tag team championship match in the audience, and you're just thinking, well, we've been screwed out of a title match.
To be honestly, I think it took a little bit out of the crowd too, because I don't think that crowd really knew either, and you could tell it kind of caught them off guard when, like, you saw the managers first, but then the shrinkers come out, and then there's nothing on their waist. It was really weird too that did you like Lou Albano paired with them, by the way, or did you just like him with Alpha?
No.
I preferred him with Alpha.
I preferred heel head shrinkers with Arthur. Like I said on Union Smack a few weeks ago, head shrinkers never worked as a babyface team for me. Like the look and the aura around them was heel,
Yeah.
and I don't know. It felt like they'd ran the barrel dry with what to do with them, and so they just turned them babyface, give them Lou Albano, and hope for the best.
I'm totally with you. And their ingenious idea to do this great baby face angle to make them more lovable is make them have to wear shoes and then be worse wrestlers when they wear shoes. Why did they do
Yeah,
that?
wasn't there a thing at Survivor Series '94 where Samu had been replaced with the Barbarian as Sione, and they didn't they piss about with their boots for like
That
the majority of the time they were in there.
that's all they did as baby
Awful.
faces in the fall of '94. It was like months of superstars matches and Raw matches fucking with their boots and Lou Albano trying to get them more civilized and to wear shoes. And like they booked it where like Sione had no problem because obviously he was the barbarian who wore fucking boots, but Fatu, it was literally costing Fatu matches. Like in that Survivor Series match, him fucking with the shoes got him pinned by Diesel, I think. Because I think Diesel eliminated like 4 guys in that match, that Survivor Series.
Yeah, it did. And after one match of these boots don't fit right, you turn around and say, you know what, I'm going to do away with them. I'm going to wrestle barefoot because this is taking the piss now.
What? See, here's the thing with me. Any manager, kayfabe or not, why the fuck would you care if your guy wore shoes or not? If it's working for him. So in turn, that made Lou Albano look like a dipshit, and it made him look like an asshole for forcing these guys to wear shoes.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'll be honest. I don't think anyone's put as much thought into it as we have. But head shrinkers, baby face in boots, take it off of my television.
Matt, this was also the first and last time a WWF pay-per-view was opened by the Million Dollar Corporation and closed by the Million Dollar Corporation. This was the most dominant time in the history of the Million Dollar Corporation stable. This little spring to fall of '94, that was fucking it. The ride was over. I didn't like it, and I don't like this random pairing of a team as Bam Bam and IRS. It made no sense for me why Bam Bam was ever in the corporation. I get it. Everybody has this price, but Jesus Christ, I mean, they were just throwing anybody in it. Bundy, Volkov one actually got a pop out of me because they made him like a parody. DiBiase put like the cent sign instead of the dollar sign on his gear. I just didn't like this, and it was. I think that's for me as a viewer, especially going back now. That took a lot out of caring about this match for me because it was a thrown together fucking tag team in the first place that I never really invested in.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, the Million Dollar Corporation was just a ragtag of anyone they had no ideas. I mean, you'd have King Kong Bundy in there by '95, and obviously, later on in this event, you'd have Tatanka. It was just like anyone they had no more plans for and had to keep around because they were contractually obliged. Just give them to Ted DiBiase, and you know what? Before this, I watched In Your House 4, literally just before we started recording. Psycho Sid in the Million Dollar Corporation for a sneeze. If just anyone.
Yep, and it's we'll get there in a little bit, but it's crazy. You would think they had huge plans for Tatanka after watching this show, and just nothing.
Oh yeah,
literally nothing.
This was it. This was the highlight, I think, of Tatanka's entire career. Just like the shocking heel turn and the win over Lex Luger, and that was it. Just a wet fart afterwards.
We'll definitely get back to the Shaman Superstar here in a second. And ring-wise, what did you think of this tag match? Because I didn't think it was bad at all, like I said. I thought it was a decent little match. Was it pay-per-view worthy for the time? It was the finish. If the finish even if the heels won in this match, I would have liked the match more. It just felt like a big waste of time by the end of it, especially considering there were no belts in there, because this was originally a tag team title match.
Yeah, I mean, the no belts definitely took you out of it. It made it. I'm not going to say it was pay-per-view worthy because I didn't think it really was. I thought it was very good. Bam Bam Bigelow against the Head Shrinkers was the best part of this. IRS held up his end, I thought, I can't remember the last night Rotunda looked that fast and that capable as IRS. But like you said, the end was appalling. Just absolutely appalling end to, what could have been a great opener for a pay-per-view. I just don't see why this had to end in like a double, not a double disqualification, sorry, a disqualification when, just laziness. Think of better ways. This was awful.
You would think, considering they had just lost the tag belts too, they would at least consider giving the head shrinkers their heat back in this match. But the rumor has it is that Samu failed a drug test around this time. That's why in like a month or so he was gone and replaced by Sione. So the rumor is that I've seen in a lot of interviews that's why the belts were taken off of them. They didn't even get a pay-per-view payday out of it. Vince was just punishing them booking wise, and it was kind of shit rolled downhill, and Fatu suffered too, which sucks. But that's, I guess, the risk you take of being in a tag team. Like, look at the Usos. They didn't punish the other Uso who didn't do drinking and driving, but they didn't give him anything to do. He just had to wait till his partner came back, so he wasn't making money.
Yeah. I mean, I see what you mean, but at the same time, it's like, even if it's true and Samu did fail a drug test, then have Samu take the pin and keep Fatu looking strong for when you bring Sione in. Then you can repackage the new head shrinkers as a legitimate threat in the division instead of. I mean, I can't pinpoint this exactly as the moment the head shrinkers just died as a team, but you have to consider it seriously as the moment that it was over for them, because losing by a shit disqualification, Samu basically gone in a month. If it was due to drugs, then it was due to drugs, but either way he'd be gone. Then you replace him with the Barbarian, and you basically turn him into a comedy act. So I think from here on out, this was the decline of the head shrinkers.
I think that was true about Samu also, that it shows the bias of Vince too, and like he favors certain guys because he was punished for failing a drug test, and the guy he gave the title to was Shawn Michaels, the king of failing drug tests. So what makes Shawn Michaels any better? You know what I mean? It's total favoritism if that's true. Also in my book, that was a tag match of fucking schmoz. They brawled to the back, and the fans kind of left wet fart and somber, to be honest, after this result.
Yeah, but credit to the fans, they didn't die after this.
No,
the energy was the energy was just there all night. Well, no, most of the night, but they should have given him a better payoff. It's like you stiffed him on a title change, and then you stiffed him on a decent ending to the opening match.
Where that takes to next, man.
Well, on my version of SummerSlam 94, that took us to Leslie Nielsen looking for the Undertaker backstage. Two security men in red blazers, they got his name wrong. He thinks then he's found the Undertaker, but now I don't know who this other guy is. I don't watch American old TV programs, so you'll have to fill me in. But he finds some old guy in an Undertaker hat and cloak, and they say they're on the case, and lo and behold, they're actually standing on a briefcase.
Worst joke ever. It was awful.
Sorry that, but I loved that as a kid. Like these. I mean, they were looking back at them. Shit, all these vignettes with Leslie Nielsen, and a butcher seeing the Undertaker, and a school kid has seen the Undertaker slide down the playground slide. I loved these vignettes as a kid. It's like I believed in all of this shit, but yeah, looking back now, it's like, what the fuck was I thinking?
Was this the height of just childish WWE television? Like, especially these vignettes. I feel like this was the ultimate kiddie WWF ever got.
Yeah, I think so. Involving like Les. But then you say that, but what child knew Leslie Nielsen and the character he portrayed in The Naked Gun?
I don't see when I was a kid, I loved the movie Airplane, and they would show Airplane on like TBS and like on TV during the day all the time. So I guess like in the 70s it was a controversial comedy, but by like the 90s when you and I were kids, it was on TV a lot. So I knew who Leslie Nielsen was, and that was so slapstick, that movie as it was. It's really weird that like their main demographic was children in this time in '94. And you're right. Leslie Nielsen was the guy that you would think would be
It
someone that
shows,
spoke
yeah.
to the youth a little bit more, someone they could relate. Like, didn't Dennis the Menace just come out? Why not have Dennis the Menace going around backstage trying to find the Undertaker?
I'd have
Well,
loved that. I actually knew who Dennis the Menace was. I saw the movie.
yeah. But it's crazy too, because even when like the lights are out and Leslie Nielsen's walking up on the other guy his name is not coming to me, and I'm gonna kick myself in the ass when I go back to edit this later. But he's in the Naked Gun movies with Leslie Nielsen. That's why he's in this. But when you see his back turn, you can obviously see the white hair, and he's not tall, but like Leslie Nielsen's all shocked that it's him and not Taker.
Yeah.
So cheesy.
Is it just me? Now is it just me? Because there was this vignette with Leslie Nielsen and the other bloke. I remember, and I might be remembering wrong, but when it went out live in '94, I'm 100% certain there were at least 2 or 3 more little backstage vignettes like this. And when I was watching the DVD, it felt like they'd edited them out because the matches one would end and then it would not fade, but it would almost cut in to the entrance for the next match, like they'd edited some out. Did you get more of these on the network?
I think I got them all in their entirety as they aired. Like I remembered all of these because I had the VHS of this recorded off pay-per-view as a kid, and I watched a lot. It went down like this pretty much.
Damn, remembered wrong then.
Now, what WWE does on their pay-per-views a lot, they splice out some of the old Hotline little inserts they throw in, like 30. Yeah, like they're noticeable. They added out, but I got all my Leslie Nielsen in, man, all of it. Unfortunately, I wish I had your version. To be honest,
you need the DVD version, honestly, because I think the next bit was a DVD, a VHS exclusive, because obviously the DVD ripped straight from the VHS. This was Razor Ramon in a medical room giving us a history of how he lost the Intercontinental title to Diesel and basically announcing that he'll have Walter Payton in his corner.
Yeah, that was total exclusive because I cut to a Diesel promo next.
Oh my God, I didn't get that Diesel promo until after the next match.
Where he talks about being Midas and everything he touches turns to gold.
I didn't write down the particulars, come on, but no, I don't remember that. So maybe yours was a little exclusive for something else, and mine was the UK Razor Ramon exclusive.
Yeah, there was no Razor.
Damn. Well, after that, I think we can both agree we got the women's championship match.
Fuck me, you're right, I am forgetting the women. You're totally right, and it's one of my favorite women's matches of all time. What the hell's wrong with me? You can tell I've been going for a month. Alundra Blaze and Bull Nakano, Matt. Go ahead. My God, what a match.
Yes, for the WWF Women's Championship, such as it was in 1994. This was very good. I didn't remember this being as good as it was, but shocked me, Travis. It shocked me that 1994 WWF had a standout Women's Championship match.
2 of my favorite rivalries of all time are actually on this show. Bull Nakano and Alundra Blaze is probably my favorite women's rivalry of all time. Their matches in the Tokyo Dome later this year, where Bull Nakano beat her for the title, was great. They tried to rekindle it in WCW a couple years later in like '96, but it was never the same. This was peak. They were doing a lot of the AJW stuff over there in Japan. Medusa was over there in the early '90s a lot, so they worked each other a lot already in the '90s. This match, even for a women's match at the time, and even as a kid, this blew my mind, specifically the submission spot where she literally folded Alundra Blaze up like a crab or a scorpion, whatever. Brutal. Oh, it hurts to just watch that. So
it does.
But this
and you know what?
Good.
I was just going to say, 94, the crowd for women's wrestling absolutely loved this. It's like I don't remember them being silent for any part of this. Why could they not have carried this and built like a legitimate women's division?
I disagree slightly. I feel like during the introductions, the entrances, and about 2 minutes in, like the first tie-up and stuff, the fans didn't really invest a lot, but the way they worked the match, by the end of this, crowd were on their feet, and that speaks to these women, especially for this time and where women's wrestling was at. It was nothing. Women's wrestling was I'm not even exaggerating. It was literally nothing.
Yeah. Let's try and we'd have Bertha Faye not too far down the line as well, so way to shit on a title in a division.
Maybe we'll get SummerSlam 95 this summer, who knows, but that's when Bertha beats Alundra for the title, that one the following year. But see, the crazy thing about Bertha Faye is, and it's always easy to laugh at that gimmick, why not? Look at it. Rhonda Singh was a fucking legend in Japan. Rhonda Singh was a monster in Japan. So it's like, essentially, she was like Awesome Kong in Japan at the time. They signed her and they made her into like Miss Piggy or something. It was awful. The worst thing they could have done with her is what they did. And they still put the belt on her. Unbelievable. I can't imagine why Medusa threw that belt away, to be honest.
Oh my God. Sorry, Miss Piggy. Jesus Christ.
Well, rest in peace, Ron Singh, and all due respect. But I'm just thinking like the bow and the pink dresses, and obviously she was a hefty lady, and just Miss Piggy. The match, though, Bull Nakano is a fantastic worker, not just for women, but for anybody that size. The way she moves, that leg drop off the top rope on those hard rings in '94, when she fell right on her tailbone and her ass. Once again, this is probably the one match on the card, besides the cage match, for obvious reasons, it was a cage, where I felt their pain while watching this. Because they both, but Alundra Blaze is a tremendous seller too, very underrated.
Yeah, agreed. And the ring gave nothing all night. Like, you sent out a little tweet before this of Brett suplexing Owen off the cage, and it's just like, the ring was solid. It must have been like crashing into a brick wall at 30 miles an hour.
For sure. One thing that always pisses me off about going back and watching Alundra Blaze matches is Lawler on commentary. All he ever talks about is her being ugly, or jokes about her being ugly, and it can be distracting from the match. And at the time, if I was Alundra Blaze, that would have fucking pissed me off, because it was hard to take her serious when, let's be honest, some of the jokes are funny, but you find yourself laughing at the jokes more than paying attention to her, Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But I don't know. I think you say I love Jerry Lawler. No, sorry, I love '94 Jerry Lawler commentary. I just thought he healed it up so well, and he took it out of her and made fun of her, etc. But did that not make you, as a young man, just want to back the baby faces more, like when the heels just did stuff like that?
I feel like it goes back to what I said. I think it was too busy when I was a kid making me question if I was a good person, because I was laughing at some of these jokes. Because let's be totally honest, he was fucking savage on Alundra Blaze, way more than a lot of people. Like, I remember a line, it might have been this or Survivor Series, but he goes, "Hey, you hear they're making a Gorillas in the Mist remake at Alundra Blaze's house in her shower," or something like that. It was just brutal. Fucking, they're gonna cast her in Mr. Ed as Mr. Ed. Like, holy shit. And Alundra Blaze was like a legit kickboxer. How she didn't go backstage and just break his jaw is beyond me, I guess. Fear of her job, of course. But God, Jesus Christ, Lawler. The match, though, I don't know how I feel about the Luna Bull Nakano pairing, because Luna was gone pretty much right after this for the most part. Didn't really make sense. It just felt like give Luna something to do.
I mean, I can see what they were trying to do, like give the foreigner an American known, valet / manager, but I mean, it was Luna Vachon. Like, she'd been the valet for Bam Bam Bigelow not so long before this, at WrestleMania, and yeah.
I feel like Bull Nakano is such a strong character on her own. She doesn't even need a manager, whether she can speak English or not. She's just such a striking heel for the time, especially.
Oh yeah, it looked like a monster. Like, I believe, and not.
Good.
I was just gonna say, not just a standard WWF monster. She looked like a proper. Like, I'd have had nightmares about fighting her. It's like, amazing.
I was going to say, honestly, for the time, too, the pairing of Gary Hart and the Great Muta in, like, '89 in the NWA, he was fantastic as a mouthpiece for Muta, but I feel like Muta could have not had a mouthpiece either, and he would have been probably even better.
Yeah, I mean, not every wrestler has to speak. Like, let them speak with their wrestling, but they needed something to do with Luna. They needed, you know, at least Vince thought he needed someone to be with Bull Nakano, but I don't know, I've never heard her speak English, but I'm pretty sure she could communicate well enough if she needed to.
Alundra Blaze gets the win with a gorgeous German suplex. Like I said,
Yes.
I would go out of your way. This is one of the two matches on this card. I would say go out of your way. They're must-sees, blueprints of just pro wrestling, especially for this company's history. Two of the most, well, I would say this match is one of the most underrated matches in the company's history, and it's very disheartening in the year 2020, like 26 some odd years later, 25 or whatever. The WWE still hasn't gotten over their bullshit of we can't push a Japanese talent without some sort of mouthpiece or stereotype. It's like they're kind of getting it with Asuka, but I feel like Asuka's kind of a placeholder. Like, look, Jesus Christ, it's not that hard to throw a subtitle on a guy. They do it with Kushida and NXT. I don't see what the big deal is with Vince on these main roster shows. It's either Orient Express or give him a manager, pal. Just Jesus. Especially, speaking of them, the Orient Express's music, that's stereotypical Asian music from back in the day. Copy and paste on every Asian wrestler. It's embarrassing.
Yeah. It's like they only had the one track, and it was like, do you know what? We haven't played it for 2 years. No one will remember it. Wheel it out again. But yeah, we did. And it's such a shame they couldn't capitalise on this match to build a proper women's division. Because when you looked at women's wrestling in '94, it's like it was non-existent in WCW. I know Japan had, its own version, but America
Japan was thriving. Japan was the complete opposite of America. From like 90 through 93, early 94, Japan, that was one of the hottest wrestling properties over there. It was competing with like New Japan's as far as business. AJW was red fucking hot. It doesn't get talked about nearly enough.
And yet Vince couldn't look at that and go, do you know what? We've got Bull Nakano, Alundra Blaze. They've just produced this match. Let's bring over some, legitimate Japanese talent. Maybe not for long, maybe just to lay the foundations of a division, and then we'll find some of the best women's wrestlers in America, because they had at least a few, and just slowly build this division up with stuff like this. Because my memory serves me correctly, Travis, before this, Alundra Blaze was fighting Leilani Kai at WrestleMania.
Yep, and 1 year later, it feels like by the time Vince was finally getting it and starting to pull that exact trigger, what you're just talking about, he brought in Aja Kong, who destroyed that entire team at like Survivor Series 95. They were going to go with that program because she was one of the biggest stars in Japan in general, men or women. Aja Kong was in like orange juice commercials and like mainstream fucking, it's crazy. I know it's hard to picture, but she really was. Alundra Blaze quit, and that's exactly what happened. But I feel like they were going to go that route. Now, if they would have stuck with it with other challengers for Aja Kong, who the fuck's been a challenger? Sable? Like, there was a big gap in women's wrestling in that company for like 3 years. It was like from Alundra Blaze trash can to Sable. Boom.
Yeah, that's true. But it could have been done, It's like the market was there, and yet Vince didn't capitalize on it when no one else in America really had that specific area covered.
Could be worse. It could be Rockin' Robin, Matt.
Yeah.
Is this the Diesel promo next?
Yeah, it is. Todd Pettengill, a sweaty Todd Pettengill, who's been on it.
Sweatingill?
Oh, no. Huh? Todd Sweatingill. Very good. Huh? I didn't think of that.
The kid still got it. Month off or not, huh?
A sweaty Todd Pettengill. He had been running around, as we say in England, like a blue-ass fly all night. He'd done the 20-minute pre-show where he'd gone from in the arena to outside the arena to in the rafters and the concession stands, etc. And now they'd shoved him backstage with a microphone. I'm not sure whether I like Todd Pettengill anymore. It's like, as a kid, I loved him, but now it's just like he was well over the top.
It depends what they had him doing. Like that show Mania that aired on Saturday mornings, unfucking bearable because it was just an hour of Todd in the studio, ungoddamn bearable. And it was even worse when they gave him Stephanie Weiland, who was even more cringe than him. So he had a little buddy's fucking annoying douchebag. You remember when they had all the fake doinks around the Manhattan Center on that episode of Raw? Like he was in the rafters. They should have done like just fake Todds, but just random guys with Todd haircuts, but like a black guy and an Asian guy just to be funny. Why not?
It's like, how did he last for so long? Didn't he go right through like 96 into early 97?
He debuted at what, WrestleMania 9 into like 96, something like that. He was a New York radio DJ, I guess, and Vince discovered him. Everybody in that New York market seemed to get a goddamn shot. Rob Bartlett, Todd Pettengill. Surprised Don Imus didn't announce WrestleMania one fucking year, man.
Was Todd Pettengill not the face of In Your House as well to begin with? It's like he was like everywhere. I mean, every live thing. And a lot of people.
Good. No, good.
I was just gonna say, like, as much as like I've just criticised Todd Pettengill, etc., I think I'm going to be disappointed if NXT don't bring him back for one night only to do In Your House.
Same mine. I was literally about to say last week I put out, a lot of people thought it was like a parody joking tweet when I first saw the announcement of NXT In Your House, but no, I was serious. The first thing I think of when I hear In Your House is literally Todd Pettengill. And I put an excited tweet like, Todd Pettengill returns, blah, 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 something like that. But I was serious. That's what I think about. I think about people calling in trying to win a fucking house with this big dumpster thing full of envelopes. And Shawn Michaels one year, I think, swung in like Tarzan. That's what I think of In Your House.
I think I remember that. If they don't have the set and they don't have Todd Pettengill for this one night of wrestling, then you failed.
They better have that little house set. God damn it. They better still have that shit in the warehouse. It's not In Your House with that little set. Come on.
If not, how expensive can that be to build? Come on.
Right.
Give you and me 2 weeks and we can build it out of wood and paint.
It's just like a glorified little girl's playhouse. Just for her dolls, just bigger a little bit.
Yeah. With a bit cut out for the entrance, a bit cut out for the Titantron screen. Job done.
Job done. Speaking of job done, really good little Diesel promo. I don't think it gets talked about enough when he got the mic time. I mean, this wasn't tremendous, but this was fine. It got the point across. He could be intimidating when he wanted to. And I love the thing about Midas and everything he touches turns to gold. It was showing that signs of his humorous, like kind of tweenerish behavior in a way. And this was also when they were first planting the seeds of that. They stretched this out until Survivor Series, the final breakup, where Diesel would hold the guy, setting him up for the super kick. Razor would duck. Shawn accidentally kicked Diesel in the face. Diesel would get pissed. Rinse and repeat. They did this like 3 more times or something. And finally, Diesel had enough, and that's what would turn Diesel babyface by the end of the year and be champion and beat Bob Backlund. But this was when that was first starting. I think this was the first time that happened, actually, that spot, man.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I think so, because like at the end of the match, he seemed not as pissed off as he would have done had it already happened 3 or 4 times. So, yeah, I like that. It's like that's one of my overriding memories as a kid of WWF in the 90s. Just like Shawn missing the super kick every time, just hitting Diesel, and then Diesel slowly getting more and more pissed off. And it was the night after Survivor Series that he beat Backlund, wasn't it?
It was like a night or two in a house show, I think. It was an MSG on a house show, I believe. And it was like 8 seconds. They're looking at the clip right now, the entire match. There you go, guys. 8 fucking seconds. Diesel's champ. He literally kicks him, power bombs him. That's it.
It's like in what, August to November, so 3 to 4 months, like Kevin Nash went from just bodyguard hated to face of the company, and people just loved him. Because I remember watching that clip, and Nash got such a reaction when he entered the Garden to challenge Backlund, and yet 2 nights before he was still technically a heel.
And how crazy is it if the show Lonesome Dove never existed, it would have never fucking happened, because the only reason Brett dropped the title to the transitional, guy Backlund and passed it to Diesel because he was going to film Lonesome Dove episodes and be in The Simpsons and all that shit. Brett was trying his hand for the first time at like other forms of media. And I mean, years later it goes down, people still say the worst title reign in history was Diesel as far as business.
I mean, I don't know. He
Look
seemed
at the
popular.
timing, though, and what he had to follow. He's literally following Hogan and Savage and guys like that. I can see the bar being a little high and kind of hard to reach, considering it was the goddamn golden era that he's following. I think people have been a little rough on him. I think anybody, even Brett, struggled in that role immediately following that era. Shawn did better in '96 as champ, but Shawn wasn't doing Steve Austin business by any stretch of the imagination. The company was still on its ass until Austin came along. Let's not kid ourselves.
And they can blame Diesel as much as they want, but look at what they gave him to work with, like Mabel and fucking rubbish like that. I mean, he had Shawn up until WrestleMania, which I'm sure helped him immensely, but after WrestleMania, it was like Bulldog heel turn, Mabel at SummerSlam, and it was just, awful booking.
Not even the booking of Diesel. Look at the rest of the goddamn card. We literally just got saying 40% of the show was Todd Pettengill running around and fucking Tatanka angles, and Jesus Christ, Leslie Nielsen. I mean, it wasn't a thriving time as far as cutting edge entertainment in my book, but it still has those nostalgia fumes for me. I mean, we were literally 10, 11, 9 years old when this aired. So, I mean, through the eyes of a kid, especially in the early 90s kid where there was no internet and all that, this was amazing. This match was amazing for me. Now, if you don't watch football, you're a little bit lost in this match because who the fuck's Walter Payton? But NFL legend, for by the way, no reason at all other than they're in Chicago, because there's never a mention of them being friends on any other episode of any other program WWF television until this little feud. In the corner, Razor Ramon going against Diesel, co-champion with tag champion Shawn Michaels. This is when they started doing Shawn more of a manager role with Diesel. I thought Shawn, if he would have stuck with it, he was a good manager. He showed a lot of energy out there. He didn't get himself over at the expense of his guy. He always made sure Diesel was getting the majority of the heat and was just trying to stand. I found myself really getting into Shawn out there as a manager. And I kind of like, if he gets a little bit older, and you know how companies now love to have a Jake Roberts and Arn Anderson, a fucking any old Taz now in AEW with Brian Cage, any old alumni, I feel like Shawn would be a fine manager.
Would you do it on the main roster, or would you do it in NXT to give
someone in
NXT
I'd put him with Adam Cole. That's what I would do.
I mean, does Adam Cole need a manager? I mean, I heard rumors today that he could be off in September.
Shawn could be the Ric Flair, the J.J. Dillon to Undisputed Era, or what those guys were to Evolution and the Horsemen in a way.
That is actually a good call.
Just that extra little nuance layer.
There you go. But you better wear the fucking leopard print chaps and the hat, because I owned that hat. I owned that hat, and I owned the red gloves he used to wear. And I wish I kept them.
Did you buy it when Barry Dudensky was trying to sell you during the pay-per-view?
No, I didn't. I bought it at a live event, I think, in '96, when he was still wearing all that shit.
I am sad there's no Barry Dudensky to cover on this. But this match, what did you think? The in-ring, the crowd was on fire for this. Obviously, I think we both agree the booking was fine. But I thought this was I'm going to consider the gimmick match because the celebrity manager. But everybody did their role fine. Walter Payton did tremendous in this, I thought.
Yeah, he did. He did. He had little to do, but I think the fact the Intercontinental title was on the line was secondary to what they were trying to build to. It was very much, this match exists to get Razor, get the title back on Razor, and to get to the final goal of starting a babyface turn for Diesel. Yeah. And do you know what? For what it worked. It was very good. Both, Scott Hall and Kevin Nash worked like a dream together. And the final pop when Razor won, it was just wow.
You would have thought he literally won the world title, and that speaks to how important the IC title was back then.
Yeah, absolutely. Just how times have changed.
Now it's just like an ugly Ring of Honor knockoff title that guys surrender because they're trapped. They can't leave the country or whatever. I don't know. Times have changed for sure. Scott Hall, I think we've said it a million times every time we review a Scott Hall match. One of the most underrated workers of all time, Matt.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think I said a few weeks ago, greatest wrestler never to be WWF champion. And he's selling. I don't think his selling gets talked about enough either. It's like he could sell. I'd put him up there with like Savage and Bret Hart for selling.
Yeah. Yeah, and totally night and day Scott Hall we talked about from a month ago when we did WrestleFest 93 when he was smacked off his tits and just wouldn't be anywhere
Yeah.
else. This was great. This is one of my favorite Razor Ramon matches of all time. It's up there. Go out of your way, check it out again. Was it time for Little Indians to have a price?
Well, not on my version. On my version, Diesel came backstage and basically threw the tag team championship like it was. I think this is probably another exclusive to the Coliseum home video release of SummerSlam '94. But after Michaels had kicked Diesel in the face, Diesel barged through the backstage, shouted at the cameraman, and he threw the tag team championship down. And he went, "Is this all I'm left with?" And it was just like, wow, not a way to devaluate the championship.
Yeah, I did not get that. I remember the one in Survivor Series where like he chased him all the way to his car because he'd finally had enough.
I remember that too, yeah. But after that, yes, it was time for Todd Pettengill, who was backstage with Lex Luger and Tatanka. Perhaps the two men you'd never want to cut a promo. But yeah, they had them do, and this was slick hair Tatanka. Like there was no red mohawk. If you couldn't tell, even as a kid in 1994, who was going to turn heel, then you needed your brain testing. Tatanka
Which blows my mind because when the turn happened, you could literally hear the crowd gasp. They were shocked. I'm like, how did you not see it coming? Grown adults in this crowd were shocked. Legit.
I think that came from the fact that Luger had come in as a heel in '93, and people were like, well, it's more believable that he'd turn than Tatanka. But just look.
Like they did the phone poll, okay? The whole gist of this, guys, is did Vince McMahon sell out the Ted DiBiase stable? By selling out, is he going to join? Is he going to turn heel? Did Ted DiBiase buy him off? They did a phone poll for fans to vote in, and apparently, I listen to Bruce Pritchard's podcast religiously. It's a great show. I don't care what people say about Bruce. These were legit. Every time they did one of these, a lot of people thought they weren't. No, these were all shoots. 54% thought he was going to fucking. It's like the fan. He didn't stand a chance in that WrestleMania 10 angle when him and Brett won the Rumble. Brett was hands down way more popular. Brett was the right call. And the Luger thing just kind of fizzled out until he left a year later. I mean, they were already throwing him way down the card a couple months after Mania 10 right here. And the fans didn't even want to like them anymore. That totally backfired, I feel like.
They were booing him. But Tatanka changed his whole attitude and his whole personnel, like in the weeks leading up to this. Like he'd bled out the mohawk, he'd grown his hair, he looked like a heel, but people were still like, nah, it's got to be Luger.
Here's the thing. I'm fine with heel turns. I'm fine with giving a guy a new paint a coat of paint. Oh my God, paint of coat. Hashtag paint of coat. I'm fine for that if it makes sense. Of all the guys to pick to turn heel at the time, you take the lovable Indian dude. That's like it baffles me that Chief Jay Strongbow was a heel because it was just like every time I see, especially this was the time of hokey Native American gimmicks, you just automatically by default they're fucking baby faces. So it's just an asinine decision in the first place because Tatanka. I mean, I know people were like when they were a kid, legit one of their favorite wrestlers were Tatanka. He was so over. People loved Tatanka, and I just. Wrong guy to turn, and just obviously hindsight's 2020. It went nowhere because what do you do now with the evil Indian? All he did was I think feuded with the Smoking Guns, and then he got like suspended for another drug policy violation. That was quite often back then, and he came back in like '96 for like 2 months, and then gone to like '06.
Yeah, that was it. I'm not going to say it was the wrong decision to turn to Tatanka. Because, like, what are you going to do with him? You didn't give him the title, the Intercontinental title at WrestleMania 9. That horse had bolted. He was not going to be a contender for the WWF Championship at any point after, I think we said, like, when we did WrestleFest, like, they were...
He was already a jobber by, like, King of the Ring 94. Like, I think he lost to Owen in that tournament, or Bam Bam. So he was already... That strength was long gone.
I think as soon as he lost that streak to Ludwig Borger, that was it. He was done. His whole thing was the undefeated streak, and once that was gone, that was it. It was like there was no title on the horizon. You hadn't pulled the trigger. What's left for him? turning him heel wasn't such a bad idea in my mind, but there had to be something to follow it. There was no title reign to come. You know, he could have beat Razor Ramon for the Intercontinental title and then build, you know, a 3-month feud out of Razor Ramon versus Tatanka. Surely Scott Hall could have got something out of him, but you know, maybe the heel turn came too late.
This Lex Luger promo, pre-match, when it's just him and Tatanka standing there, and it's literally, you can see Lex looking at you through the camera, like he's literally begging the audience, like, please believe me, I did not do this. Really good Lex promo. Where did this come from? I enjoyed that.
And traditionally, Lex Luger isn't known for giving
Were you kind of
great promos, but he did very
that
well.
Was pretty good after watching it.
Yeah, intense is the word I'd use. It was like they've shafted me out the championship. They've given me Crush. They've given me Tatanka. Just like, I need something to go for me. Don't you lot turn on me as well?
You know what? I feel like Lex Luger is that era's Brock Lesnar. When Lex Luger gave a shit when he showed up to work and wanted to put effort into what he's doing, it could be fantastic sometimes. But when he wanted to just show up, collect a check, and phone it in, you got, you know, Lex Luger 95 for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah. And look how far it's fallen, Travis, in a year. Just
not even. WrestleMania 10 was 3 months before this, Matt. 3 or 4 months.
Do you know what? I'm for me, like, he was dead way before WrestleMania 10. After they didn't put the title on him at SummerSlam, I think interest, you know,
it lost a lot of faith, especially in younger fans at the time, myself included as a kid, because when they did that, he was following a guy who never lost in Hogan. So that was kind of the expectations from kids back then. We want a new hero, this invincible Superman guy, and to see, and it's not like he had already been the champion, then he lost like Hogan. It's like, imagine if Hogan would have lost that match against Iron Sheik when he won the title for the first time up north. How would that going? You think he's going to have any kind of momentum for the rematch? You think? And Lex didn't either, because people lost faith. And it was. I hate to keep saying it. We keep saying a lot, but there's no internet back then. That's what you see is what you got on TV. People didn't give a shit about kayfabe. It's all about the wrestling and the entertainment and the stories, and people bought in and people believed. It was just that time of people still believed. People were starting to fall off and seeing through the cracks that it's hokey and all that. But Lex Luger let me down as a kid, flat out, and I didn't give a shit.
He did that. It's, you know, it started off in SummerSlam 93, turning face. Here it is, you know, the chance to put the title on him, defeat this Goliath monster that had beaten Hulk Hogan, and then, that's the best way I can describe Lex Luger's there.
And it's not even that, like it's not like they like slightly gradually put him down. No, well, now you're in an IC program with Shawn Michaels. No, it's like, down with Tatanka you go, and you stay there, you son of a bitch.
Not just Tatanka, Crush as well. It's like, how low can one man fall?
Oh, I remember one even worse than that after this. It was Bundy, because then Bundy debuted for the corporation. He was feuding with Lex for like a month. Oh, my God.
Can you imagine the disappointment? Just like, you've gone from literal main event status all the way down to King Kong Bundy and Crush.
P.S. This match fucking sucked, by the way. It was boring. It was dull. It was rest holds. It was Lex doing that awkward, loud selling he does. Like, shut up, Lex. Every fucking time. Like, I try to get into a Luger match, like, and more times than not, I don't want to mute it. It's like that Iron Mike Sharp school of selling where you're just so loud.
Yeah, it wasn't good at all. I mean, this for me was on par with their King of the Ring 93 match, where it went a 15-minute time limit. I think this went about 7 minutes, and it was all building towards the finale. That's what the entire match existed for. There was, I mean, I don't. It's hard. Like, how do you describe it? It's like the story was there for them to tell, but neither of them had the ability to tell it until Ted DiBiase turned up.
Plus, that post-match attack after DiBiase showed up from Tatanka, where, you know, it was revealing he was a heel, was so lackluster. Lex Luger sold that like he got hit by a bus, and all he really took was a Samoan drop and some stomps. That was it.
Yeah.
And he's just devastated. And then, by the way, this was supposed to be the new Hogan a year ago, and that's all it takes. No hulking up for you, brother. And then shoving
And
the money in
definitely,
his mouth, and just, I mean, it was a shocking moment, but it's also by the time you saw, by the end of this segment, by the time they faded to something else, you already kind of, even as a viewer, knew this wasn't going to go anywhere. This was just all for these guys to have something to do because they had no plans for him.
didn't this drag through to Survivor Series? Like, wasn't it Smoking Guns, Luger and Mabel against the $1 Million Corporation, and the main crux of that match was Luger and Tatanka still.
Excuse me, Matt. You made me remember those teams. Ugh. Jesus Christ. Adam Bomb and Mabel on the same team.
Wow. Well, talking of which, we totally forgot to mention that the the dark match of SummerSlam '94 was Adam Bomb versus Quang. Are we all not glad we didn't get to see that?
I was going to say, did you get that on your weird UK version since you got everything else they didn't air on mine?
I didn't. I got the entrance music. It was odd. It's like the camera was on Todd Pettengill all the time, and you could hear Howard Finkel announcing Adam Bomb and Quang in the background. And Todd Pettengill even went to the trouble of going, "There's a pre-match coming up to warm the crowd up," and he might as well have turned around and gone, "But we're not going to show you that. Here's some recap."
Right.
It was odd. It was awful, but thank God he didn't.
Well, thank God that match is it's in the books. We've talked about it. We can move on because up next is one of my favorite storylines, one of my favorite matches of all time that I've been dying to talk about and review. And I hope I'm on format and on point. I'm not missing. It was Leslie Nielsen might have come out on stage and waved to people for no reason.
No. You're missing Jeff Jarrett and Mabel.
Oh, okay. They put him on the death spot after the shocking heel turn from a beloved babyface. These guys, you would think the death spot, but I mean, this was like the feud of music, country versus rap. These people treated Mabel like he was a goddamn hero. Like you just saw Karens and all these white dudes and just waving their hands like they just don't care. My God, on their feet.
And whoever thought this was a pay-per-view match, as popular as Mabel was, it was this superstar's main event at best.
Mabel wasn't even officially an established singles guy either, which is weird. He's still a tag team guy, which made this even feel the placement of this even more strange.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I might be misremembering this, but Mabel wouldn't even be seen as a proper singles guy until round about King of the Ring '95. For me, maybe a few weeks before that.
Yeah.
Maybe there was like an In Your House somewhere. Yeah, where he had a singles match. But really, King of the Ring '95 was where they just said, "Do you know what? Men on a Mission has grown old. Let's try and push this beast as the next major heel."
And I can't imagine why people didn't even buy into him a year later as a monster heel when here he was losing to a guy who's 220 fucking pounds. Pretty much clean.
Did this end not look fucking terrible? Just like,
it's still shocking. Before I even went back to watch this, when I looked at the results on like Wikipedia just to catch up, it was still shocking that this match A happened and B the result just caught me off guard. But it happened. Jeff Jarrett beat fucking Mabel clean.
It's like we've said about the ring being hard, and obviously Mabel got the Bull Nakano treatment where he tried to drop onto Jeff Jarrett. Jarrett moves. Mabel hits hard on his tailbone, but then it was just like Jarrett gently pulls him back and hooks a leg as if Mabel couldn't kick out of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Why wasn't
Awful.
Adam Bomb in this match and Mabel on the pre-show with Quang? Flip it. It would have been a little better. I mean, it's still not fucking great because it's Adam Bomb, but it would have been better than Mabel. Christ. And wasn't this the time Adam Bomb was a heel. God damn it. That doesn't work. Son of a bitch.
No, it's 94. Was Adam Bomb a heel? Because Quang was definitely a heel.
Wait, no, you're right, because Adam Bomb was on Lex's team at Survivor. So yeah, I get a pass. Adam Bomb was a baby. Flip it, you fucks. By the way, is Oscar the worst rapper of all time, or is it just me? Like, he says 3 lines repeatedly over and over, and he fucks those up most of the time.
God bless Oscar.
I know this is your favorite Jeff
you-
Jarrett attire because this is what your number one skin in Fire Pro you made. This blue and yellow ensemble he's rocking in this.
This will be, I think. I mean, I think I've put it in his 95 run because I remember him significantly wearing it on several Superstar episodes, but it's definitely going to be in the game. Yeah.
And a year later, Jarrett's another guy too who they started, finally taking seriously as a singles guy who won his IC title at Rumble '95. So they were starting with him too. Maybe this match impressed Vince so much that he took a gamble on both guys a year later. My God, that was incredible.
I don't even remember what Jarrett did after this until the Rumble. I mean, what was he on Sean's team at Survivor Series?
I want to say he just fucked around with Doink through the fall of the '94 for no reason, and when he was on Shawn Michaels Survivor Series team, and then that match with Razor. I feel like he did filler for fall of '94 for the most part. Nothing but.
It's a shame, though, 'cause I love Jeff Jarrett as a wrestler, but he had so much more to give, and yet you give him Doink, and you give him Mabel. Just disgusting.
The timing by this, but was this Leslie Nielsen, by the way, coming out with the lights out now?
This, yes, it was, yeah. Vince introduced Leslie Nielsen and the other bloke. They stood in the aisle, looked around, and the Undertaker silhouette appeared behind them in the entrance, and they were just not quick enough to see it.
Let's just call the other guy Jim Herd. Fuck it. Leslie Nielsen and Jim Herd. No, this goes back to what I was saying.
I think they would tell us his name.
At the top of the show, I was saying how this is maybe the hookiest we ever heard Vince McMahon. This specific segment where Vince McMahon's talking to the crowd with the lights on going, "Who could it be over there?" And the timing was off. The lighting guy just mistimed it. It was like children's show bad. Hang me.
Oh, I've missed you so much.
It's damn good to be back. Is it now time for Owen and Brett, Rage in the Cage?
It is. We got a little recap first, and in fact, a good recap because it seemed forever to put them cage walls up. But really good recap of Brett versus Owen, and then cage match for the WWF Championship.
Whoa! You're
You're
forgetting something. Very integral part of this. The interview with the Hart family at ringside before the match with Anvil and Stu and Ross and Bruce and all these fucking Bruce. Jesus Christ. Okay, Vince McMahon is going around to all the members of the Harts because in that era there was always the Harts at ringside on pay-per-view for Brett matches or whatever. He's going around to every guy. He finally notices Anvil back there. There was friction with Owen and all this stuff. So he was the one in the ear and made Owen turn heel and planting the seeds of jealousy. Bruce is sitting right in front of Anvil. Anvil's trying to cut his promo, but Bruce is so hyped, pointing in his face and just turned around and just being distracting. Jesus Christ. I can't imagine why Vince didn't want to do business with Bruce ever and chose the other Harts. Couldn't be for that lack of professionalism or anything.
Yeah, what was Bruce on? I don't think we'll ever know. But please. I wish someone had taken the microphone away from Jim Neidhart. He was absolutely horrendous on the mic. Just awful.
Bad. Yeah, it was
awful. As bad as the Bulldog was. When they came to Davey Boy at ringside, it was almost like he didn't even expect it, even though he'd obviously been told beforehand. It was like deer caught in the headlights. Horrible.
Matt, your heroes come home. This was the return of the British Bulldog since his little shitty stint in WCW. They didn't bring him back in a debut match. Sitting at ringside beside Diana, front row, cheering, being there for Brett and blah blah. In quite the ensemble, I might add. A tan vest, no undershirt, biceps out the ass, skin tight denim jeans. Now not braided Bulldog. We're talking long, beautiful, conditioned hair Bulldog and spectacles on his head. Yeah. This was thinking man British Bulldog. This was poetry school Davey Boy. This was sensitive Bulldog.
Sensitive Bulldog. Oh, you are right though. He looked what's the best way to describe him?
Like a fucking
Odd.
dork. He looked like a dork, is what I'm getting at, everyone. It looked ridiculous. It's just, who is this guy? How is this the British Bulldog? But it was him. And speaking of terrible little promos, when they interviewed him, Jesus
Yeah.
God.
Just I don't think there was one good promo from the Hart family at all. The best part of this for me was Jerry Lawler.
Oh, Jesus. I like how Vince pulls the mic away, like Stu is still talking. Vince just couldn't take anymore. He just keeps trying to take it home. But yeah, the Harts interviewed at ringside. And this was in no way I just randomly picked a review this SummerSlam. I know the Dark Side of the Ring Owen Hart episode just came out. This was no way to coincide with that. It was just kind of an unintentional, sporadic thing that happened. If anyone hasn't seen that documentary, stop whatever you're doing. Stop this show. Come back and finish this show so we get more views. But yeah, go out of your way, check it out. Amazing documentary. And this match may be my favorite Owen Hart match to this day. Dare I say it's top 3 Bret Hart match for me. A perfect, flawless, just the storytelling, the balance of how to book a cage match properly, ahead of its time, perfect for its time, everything in between. This is wrestling at its finest. Just professional wrestling perfection, I would say, is this match.
Yeah, and you know what? The story in this, I think, was equally as good as the wrestling and the booking and the pacing. It was everything you can imagine. I'm not sure whether you'd give this like 5 stars, Travis, but I did some research before we recorded, and quite a few like online. I'm not going to say respectable, but like semi-respectable sites gave this like 5 stars, and it's hard to disagree with them. Like 94, Bret Owen, all the magic came together for this.
It really did. And this, we just talked about Meltzer on Muted. I'm not going to get into that, but he gave that Young Bucks ladder match 5.25 stars, 5.5 stars. If anything, this would equate to me a 5.5 star match, because just that little extra of the tremendous top 3 storyline they've ever done added onto this, put it over 5 stars for me. Like without that storyline, the match would have been 5 stars on its own. It was so well performed in ring, but just with that, my God, I could watch this any day of the week. If I'm running wrestling school, we say it all the time, this is what I'm showing in the criteria, man. Hands down.
Yeah. Could not agree more. Now, would you, if you had the book here, would you have given Owen the title?
I would have. I wouldn't have done it at this. I would have probably done it a little bit after this. I thought this was to kind of even it out, because Owen won at Mania. Then I would go on the rubber match instead of Backlund at Survivor Series. It should have been Owen in there with the throw in the towel gimmick. You know what I mean? And then Owen still could have won, and Brett still could have been cheated, but just book it another way. Because looking back, I mean, knowing what we know now is easy in hindsight and all that shit. But Backlund, come on, question mark.
Well, but the thing, I'd have completely changed everything. I would have given Owen the title here. Then, obviously, I'd have let Brett go and film Lonesome Dove, etc. And then I'd have brought Brett. I can't fucking talk again. I'd have brought Brett back and had him beat Owen for it at WrestleMania 11. Like, I'd have changed the entire thing.
I think either would have worked. Honestly, it would have been better than what we got in the spring of '95. I mean, Brett wrestled Backlund in the terrible I Quit match at Mania 11, and that's one of the worst WrestleManias of all time. So anything would have been better than what they gave us.
Can you imagine though, like a third Bret Owen match for the title at WrestleMania? Is like, surely that would have sold WrestleMania more than what we got. I mean, I know Shawn and Diesel was a big thing after after Survivor Series, but that would have been equally as big a thing if they'd have fought over the Intercontinental title.
Bret and Owen would have been bigger, no matter what. Just it had the longevity. They had been playing it out for a year, and it was built in storyline. They were actual brothers. It would have been bigger to do a WrestleMania than Diesel and Shawn. Looking back,
it would have. Bret Owen for the WWF title in the main event of WrestleMania 11. Shawn Diesel for the Intercontinental title on the undercard. 2 major feuds.
Does LT and Bam Bam still headline too? Is the question.
No. Absolutely not. It wasn't.
Well, not if we have the book, but I'm looking through it through the eyes of Vince. I think Vince still puts it on last because it's mainstream NFL, pal. He can't help himself.
Yeah. Well, we should have had the book.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda. Anything you want to add to this match? Because I feel like just reviewing it is kind of an injustice to it. I feel like everyone should just kind of do their own take on it. It's just one of those matches where I can't do it justice. You got to really just watch it for yourself if you've never seen it.
No, you really have, and I think matches like this, and he didn't have like too many more after this. I know his series of matches with Shawn Michaels, etc., would be up there with some of his best throwing, but I think this was maybe, I don't want to say the peak of his singles career, but for me, like looking at this and then looking at where he'd go in 95 and 96 with Yokozuna, and then, Camp Cornette and the Hart Foundation, etc. I don't think Owen Hart was ever more hated. I don't think he had heat as much as this ever again.
The only time he ever came even close to this was with Austin in 97. That's it.
I mean, yeah. For the time, though, I think, like, turned on his brother, just heelish, and just like the 97 Owen Hart, we knew what he was like, but I think this was still sort of new to the audience, and I don't know. For me, like, this is Owen Hart at his prime, heat wise, wrestling wise. It's like I'd have gone the whole hog and given him the title.
It really is incredible just looking at this whole angle with the Hearts in general, kind of umbrella factor in it, to go back and just how everything just kind of aligned and worked itself out. Like, what are the odds of your champion having 12 brothers and sisters in real life and being able to capitalize on all that to use to your advantage in a storyline? I'm like, Jesus Christ, the moons and the stars aligned.
Yeah, it was a special time.
Yep. 5 million stars from me on that match. Good shit. But as WWF tended to do in 94, they followed up a lot of good shit sometimes with a lot of not so good shit, with some shitty shit.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even begin to describe what we got next. I mean, how do you do it? Like, what do you want to say about this? As a kid, like, Undertaker versus Undertaker, it was special. I'm not going to sit here and say I've always hated this match and this feud. I haven't. Like, when I watched this as a kid, it was amazing. The weeks of Ted DiBiase bringing out Brian Lee as the fake Undertaker, and the whole story of, where's the Undertaker gone, and Leslie Nielsen, etc. I lapped it up as a kid. Loved looking back at it now. It's like, oh, you can clearly tell that Brian Lee looks so much different to Mark Calloway. Like,
on the weeks leading up to this, was it Brian Lee on Superstars, or that was still Mark Calloway? Except this match.
It was still Brian Lee. Mark Calloway he did the voiceovers for bits and bobs, but yeah, it was Brian Lee.
So you are the Undertaker connoisseur. Nobody in the world knows more about the Undertaker than you. Cheap plug. Buy his book, unitsmack.bigcartel.com. Why exactly did Taker step away? Just nagging injuries, just healing up a bit, taking a little break? Is that what the deal was here? Where he left for he missed through Rumble to this?
He left at the Rumble because his son was born, his first child. So he took some time out for that.
There you go. Family man. It's very Ricky Steamboat of him.
Yes, it was. Only he didn't get buried on his return or his exit.
At the time for this match, there were very, if any, matches where it had as much mystique for the build-up, because you're just wondering, how the fuck are they going to pull this off? How are they going to be? You were so intrigued, but the second you saw Brian Lee come out that entranceway, you could feel in the crowd too. This was the least reaction the crowd gave anything. It was a shitty big man match. The pacing was dull as dog shit. It had no business in any promotion in any era, main eventing any show, especially one you're paying $40, $50 for. Wow. And to see what the hell it just followed. Like this just followed was the perfect goddamn storm of wrestling booking, and to just take it from that to this organic, great family tree type shit with this amazing storyline with the title through. And oh my God, my head's gonna explode from the awesomeness to the epitome of hokey booking 101. One segment later, main eventing the fucking show. Unbelievable. Yeah. And this match felt like it went on for 40 minutes, and it only went what, 12? It didn't go that long, did it?
No, it did. I think it went like 9-10 minutes. I don't even think it went 12. I might be wrong, but
this felt like a fucking marathon. Holy shit!
No, it felt like it was never going to end. And the biggest pop this got was when the Undertaker returned. After that, the crowd were dead for it.
This is just all spectacle. You're right. The most they cared was the entrance and that weird spotlight thing out of the urn now that Paul Bearer did way too much, by the way. That was bad. It was a fucking flashlight. We're not dumb. But now he's Purple Taker. And what did you think of the transition to gray to Purple Taker, looking back?
I mean, looking back now as an adult, fine. He needed to, I don't know, not reinvent himself, but move on from the grey. The grey was very 90s, and we were entering a new generation, so it fitted with that. As a kid, I don't think I really cared about it that much. It was just like, oh, okay, he's got purple gloves now, fine.
Not just purple boots and gloves. They put little shiny gold things on the side of his boots now. I thought it was cool as a kid. I thought it made him, it updated him, and it was kind of like the Ultimate Edition Undertaker now. Until the Phantom of the Opera mask, and even as a kid I was like, what the fuck is that? It's dumb. Anything you want to add to this shit show of a main event match, the in-ring?
I mean, not match wise, it was terrible. Undertaker wins with Tombstone done. I will say, as hideous as Brian Lee was in the ring as the Undertaker, whatever you want to call him, looking back at the non-wrestling bits he did, I don't think people give Brian Lee enough credit getting down like Mark Calloway's movements and sort of like the head snaps and the way he'd grab people for choke slams and the way he walked to the ring. It's like he could have fooled you if he'd never wrestled, but unfortunately he did.
I think it helps too. I mean, weren't these guys like best friends in real life?
They're cousins, aren't they? Distant cousins, second cousins, something along those lines.
It not only helps when you pretty much look like a walking doppelganger of the guy, but when you're really good friends in real life, that probably helps you work like the guy too. I can see why he had the character down, but you would think, God, they'd have more fucking chemistry if they were really tight friends. You would think they'd be talking about their match more and what to fuck.
Yeah. Sadly, I feel like this pay-per-view, it built and it built and it built and it built, and then it just died a death at the end. No pun intended.
Dare I say, even I'm looking at this through the eyes. I mean, this is the first time in my life where I think I remember watching a wrestling match and thinking the in-ring was bad. This might be the match that made me start critiquing it that way. Like, wow, that was disappointing and not good. Where I stopped caring about just the story and the angles and the characters, and I started analyzing pro wrestling more, and to just see this incredible build and just the sizzle, and this is one of the worst main events of that time ever on pay-per-view. Maybe the worst, most disappointing one.
Wow. I mean, are we taking Mabel's into that?
No, well, that hadn't happened yet. I'm saying ever up until this point. That was like a year later.
Oh, I thought you meant looking back. But yeah,
no, up until this point, 94, that may have been the most disappointing pay-per-view main event we'd had up until then.
I mean, it's got some strong competition, but
I mean, yeah, it was really disappointing.
Might not be wrong.
We said earlier where Lex lost in the main event in SummerSlam, but that match was still hype. Like, you were still excited during the in-ring of the match. Like, you thought Lex was going to pull it off. But during this, it was just boring from bell to bell.
I can't argue with that. It literally was hideous.
And I never really liked DiBiase as a manager. And you would think that he would nail that role, even in the NWO, and he would be a tremendous mouthpiece with Steve Austin and blah, blah, blah. I always preferred him as a wrestler. I don't know.
I mean, I think DiBiase suffered from the NWO effect before the NWO were around, where they just, if it had been with one person, maybe he could have pulled it off better. But to give him like 10 people to manage, it just, to see him 3 or 4 times a night, it lessened his effect and his value, and it was just like, he just feels ordinary now.
All Vince McMahon really knew how to book at that time. This was his answer to a 1990s version of the Heenan family. All he really knew how to book then was one heel manager with all these random fucking guys that didn't make sense. Only Teddy DiBiase was no Bobby Heenan. That's what made that work, I feel like.
Yeah.
Bobby Heenan was so good doing manager promos on the mic. Bobby Heenan could get a guy over in a different way for each guy, talk about their strengths in a different way. Whereas every Ted DiBiase promo for every guy in the corporation was exactly the fucking same. It's about money and everyone got a price and blah 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 blah. Shut up.
And that's the problem when you've got 10 men under your wing. It's like, how do you make 10 promos sound different?
Yeah. Well, it's like Bobby Heenan. He would go down and talk about the Barbarian living in Singapore and ripping out people's spines. And he'd go down to Rick Rude taking home people's wives. And they were all under his umbrella, but just how he described him was completely different. Mr. Perfect, he's fucking flawless at everything he does. He plays golf and bowling and all this shit. And here's Andre the Giant, the biggest man in the world. He can drink more beer than you. And just whatever. Bobby made it work. Did the WWF in 1994, in your eyes, make SummerSlam 94 work, Matt? What do you grade this show?
I think they made it work to an extent. I'd give this B-. I'm going to be generous because of the cage match. The opening tag match wasn't hideous apart from the I'll start that again. The opening tag match wasn't hideous apart from the result. Women's Championship match was very good. Intercontinental title match was very good. I think it was a very good show that was let down by its main event.
I guess the best way for me to sum up this pay-per-view, I equate it to a cookie or a crisp, whatever you want to call it, where there's this delicious, creamy, good shit in the middle of it, but on the outside are these dry, bland, fucking keto-friendly wafers or whatever. The opening and the main event of this show should have been cut out completely. You take those out, you got a solid goddamn show right here. But those two being sandwiching it in like a shitty Oreo cookie, I'm going to have to give this show probably a C+. Didn't end, it ended on such a wet fart after a masterpiece. That took so much out of it for me. And it just, it's a fucking crime too, because I left watching the show with a shitty bad taste in my mouth. Whereas if they just would have flipped the main event, complete opposite.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair enough. This show actually ended with Leslie Nielsen and the other bloke. Did you get that on yours, or is this just me again? Yeah,
finally, the case is wrapped up, and one more little shitty joke to end the show. Yeah.
Case is closed, and here's a closed briefcase. Ha. See you tomorrow night on Raw, everyone.
Right, yeah. See you next week, and the week after that, because I am back. Slam Pigs, Union Smack is back. Can't believe I just said Slam Pigs. I didn't even mean to do that. That's true nostalgia coming out right
now. My God, you're going back in time.
Union Smack is back. Once again, Matt, thank you so much for holding it down this month, my friend. SummerSlam 94 is in the books. Before we close our case and shut the pages on our book, where can everyone catch it one more time?
You can find me, as usual, on Twitter at @ThePerfectTenant. Go to unionsmack.bigcartel.com where you can buy an official shirt from all of your shows, Travis. More to come in the coming weeks / months. And completelynovel.com where you can purchase a copy of my book, The Undertaker, A Trip Down Death Valley. And it's good to have you back.
It's damn good to be back, my friend. And check out the brand new alternative shirt in the show. Check out a Major League podcast of their own. The Alternative, Muted with Bubba. Look at the IWC. Hibiki plays, Hibiki honors, Big Quickie, all the goodness. Hit that red button right down below, lest we not forget Terry Bollea press conferences and all his bullshit too. Until then, this is Union Smack. Cheerio, mates.